housekeeping. Okay, great. Hello everyone! My name is Ashley Meyer. I'm one of our admission counselors here at Georgia Tech. So one piece of housekeeping that we have is we need to ask all of you to put your microphones on mute. Otherwise, everyone will be able to hear you throughout the webinar. For example, right now, I think everyone can hear someone. Just a second. Can you keep doing that? Okay, back to welcoming you. Welcome to the Georgia Tech International Options webinar. We have people from all over the world signed up today, from Metro Atlanta to Washington State to countries all over the world, to hear about the options available for international students and for domestic students to go abroad. So I'm going to turn it over to the panelists. I'll be behind the computer taking your questions at the end of our program for our panelists. The first half is going to be them sharing their experiences, and the second half will be you asking questions. So welcome, and we hope that this is helpful for you.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Ana Rosa Cavaria. I am the Assistant Director of Education Abroad here at Georgia Tech. We are celebrating International Education Week here at Tech and have a wide variety of events, including this webinar. So we're excited to be able to share the experiences that we've had here at Tech. The purpose of the panel is just really to introduce you to the different programs we have here. And so we have several student speakers that are just going to let you know about their experiences, tell you one or two stories, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about international opportunities at Tech. So I will let them introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Wen. I am from China. I'm the senior at Georgia Tech and my major is industrial engineering. And for today I'll be representing faculty-led program offered by Office of International Education.
Hi everyone, my name is Aditya and I'm a fourth-year electrical engineering student. I'm from Delhi, India, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about international internships and co-op programs with Georgia Tech leads.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Pham and I'm from Georgia. I'm a sophomore here at Georgia Tech and I'm studying industrial engineering. I'm in the international program, so today I'll be talking about the international plan.
And hey guys, my name is Julia Falvey. I'm a third-year business major here at Tech, and I'm from Marietta, Georgia. And I'll be talking a little bit about study abroad and direct exchange, and also the international plan in the later years.
So as you can tell, each of our students has had a different experience. That's the thing I love about Georgia Tech, is that we are very engaged internationally. We have a study abroad program that really caters to STEM students, especially engineering students. You know, you'll often find that a lot of schools aren't able to provide engineering courses abroad, but we can, and we do. So that's one of our big programs. Another one is we have a degree designator called the International Plan. It's what we say, a truly global education. And so you'll be hearing from a couple of our students about the International Plan. And then we have global internships. So not only can you study abroad, but you can also intern abroad. We have students that may spend a semester in Japan studying and then spend another semester doing an internship there. And so we really try to continuously add to our programs, and we try to be all over the world, have representation all over the world. So I think you'll enjoy hearing stories from our students right now, and they'll tell you a little bit about their experiences.
Great. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So this is my fourth year at Tech. For the previous 3 years, I have literally spent over a year abroad. I've spent 8 months working in Beijing in a company called Initial View Interview. And then I've also participated in a faculty-led program called Pacific Program. So I spent 4 months in New Zealand, Australia, and Fiji. And so it was a really cool program, and let me just introduce a little bit about faculty-led program. So the reason why it is so cool is because all the courses that we got to take during this program is they're all taught by Georgia Tech professors, and all of the classes you can literally use them towards your degree requirements. say for me, one cool thing about my program is that it's like we only need to take classes 4 days a week, and then also since you're studying abroad, we don't recommend you to take that many courses. So I was only taking 4 classes, which means that I only take classes for like 4 hours a day, and then all the rest of my day I'm free, and then I got to travel so much to explore a lot of different places, and which is really cool. At Georgia Tech, I categorize faculty lab programs to like 3 main branches. The first one is the LBAT program, which is LBAT, Language for Business and Technology. If you want to do like a minor in like a language, which it's really helpful in terms of your future degree, or career development. Georgia Tech offers LBAT program I believe it's in 14 countries and in 7 different languages. The other big branch is the faculty lab program that you can use to fulfill your core requirements, which you can take math classes, physics, or other engineering electives towards your degree. I guess the third branch is the program that you can use towards your major requirements. Say I'm in industrial engineering, and I can participate in programs, say Beijing Singapore program. We have this program so that people can participate, and they can literally take 3,000 level and 4,000 level major classes towards the degree requirements. I guess that's all for my part, and then I'll move on.
All right, so thank you, Wen. So last year, I was able to accept an international co-op program which lasted about 7 months and 2 continuous semesters at a company called NTT, Nippon Telegraph and Telecommunications in Japan. They're pretty much like AT&T in Japan, and they have a very well-versed internship program, but it's usually for students who are within the country. They are recently opening up to more different international opportunities, and they have been able to get some universities in Canada, and also Georgia Tech is one of the first universities they are working with in the United States. By chance, in fact, Division of Professional Practice awarded them their Best Employer Award last year for bringing in a lot of students from Georgia Tech and helping them out, learning more about Japanese culture, Japanese work ethics, and all that stuff. So, as an international student from India, I really enjoyed working with NTT Japan for the past 7 months. It helped me take note of a beautiful hidden treasure which I have not been to ever before. And I've been looking forward to it, and I applied for this opportunity using Georgia Tech's online application portal, which is called Career Buzz. And after the application was accepted, most of the visa complications and all my other processes were pretty swiftly handled by the Office of International Education and the Division of Professional Practice here at Tech. Before I went to Japan, Office of International Education and Division of Professional Practice introduced me to the Japanese work culture, their ethics, and the differences I might have in comparison to living in the United States and living in a country where English is not the predominant language, and how we could make ourselves do better. Thankfully, Japan is a very friendly country. They are beautiful, well-natured people, and this specific opportunity which Tech gave me was very useful for me in terms of my international experience, being an international student and then going to a country where I was completely alone, and even then all the resources and the confidence which Georgia Tech has given me in general really helped a lot. Learning to live by yourself in a different country is hard, but trying to take it one step further by learning to live in a country where you don't speak the language is much more complicated. And of course, there are certain difficulties which you can have, which we're just not used to it here in comparison to Asia or any other place where the culture is completely different. But I was able to, just because of this specific opportunity by tech, I was able to incorporate so many new different changes in my lifestyle. So for example, I don't use forks at home anymore. I just have chopsticks for everything because I find it's much easier, much faster. And I think this kind of an experience is relatively very unique. And I know there were not a lot of students out there internationally in Japan, and it's not something which people do on a daily basis. So having this kind of an opportunity for me was absolutely brilliant, and I really enjoyed my time there. And I would probably recommend many of you guys, if you would, international students, that would be great for something like that. You know, just going out to another third country and experiencing something which is completely different from your own home country and the United States in general. Moving on.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so I'll be talking about what exactly the international plan is and how to get started in the earlier years since I'm a sophomore. The international plan is an undergraduate special academic program offered at Tech, which is unique to Tech. And the goal of the international plan is to help students gain a global competence in the context of their major through a series of requirements that you can complete throughout your undergraduate year. And then upon completion of that international plan, when you graduate, you'll get a special designation on both your degree and your transcript. So the main requirements of the international plan is you're required to study or go abroad for a total of 26 weeks, which is usually one summer term and one spring and fall term. And you can basically do anything abroad. You can study abroad, you can research abroad, or you can internship abroad, which would all count towards your international experience. And then another requirement is that you're supposed to develop a foreign language proficiency, so you're learning a different language other than English up to level 2002. And AP and IB courses can count towards this credit. And then another requirement is you're required to take 3 globally focused courses, 1 in international relations, 1 in global economics, and 1 in the country or region you've selected. Because throughout your IP experience, you're supposed to have a coherency in the regions. So your study abroad terms should be within the same region, and your language should correspond with that region. The last requirement is your senior capstone course. In order to graduate, all majors have to take a senior capstone course, but as a student in the international plan, your senior capstone course is altered in order to contain some international components. So as a freshman, as a student going into Tech as a freshman, I heard about the international plan through my cousin.
Wow.
I learned about the international plan through my cousin, and I was already planning on taking a language here at Tech and going abroad at least once. So since when I heard those were some of the requirements for the international plan, I decided to join the international plan. The biggest thing for the international plan is to plan out your requirements into your major from the start. That way you can get everything in without having to stay at Tech any longer than you have to. The international plan isn't meant to keep you here any longer. A lot of the requirements can double count for major requirements. Like a lot of the globally focused courses also count as your social science and global perspectives, so you can double count them towards your major. So I'll be telling you about the international plan, but Julia will tell you more about it in the later stages.
Yeah, so just kind of to reiterate, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm my 3rd year here. I studied abroad for the fall and spring of my sophomore year. I was able to study in Paris, France, at a school called Sciences Po, and I was in a direct exchange program. And it's a little bit different than what Wen did. Wen got to go on a faculty-led program, which means that you're with a bunch of other Georgia Tech students, and you're with Georgia Tech professors, which is really fun. But for me, my experience, I was actually able to go to a school where there were 1,200 international students, and of those, 1,199 were from around the world. So I was the only student from Georgia Tech.
I have a question for you, how you guys
which was great. It was, for me, pretty much a wonderful experience. I learned about this program when I got to Georgia Tech. I knew I wanted to go abroad somewhere, so I went into the Office of International Education. I knocked on the door and I said, hey, this is my major, where can I go? They gave me a list of options. We talked about what was best for me, and I ended up picking France because I'm in the international plan, and my language is French. So what I was able to do, I was able to, using my course credit from AP classes, test out of my foreign language classes and say that I was on the right level and I was able to go. But the best part of going there is I was able to take courses that I was really passionate about, but that didn't necessarily, or weren't actually in the courses I'd be able to take while I was here at Tech, but they met all my requirements. So I took international affairs courses that I thought were really interesting that I couldn't necessarily find at Tech. But they still counted towards my electives, they counted towards other degree requirements that I had, they counted towards my international plan. It was great. For me, my favorite class that I took was actually U.S. foreign policy under the Obama administration, but it was taught by a French professor who's one of the lead European scholars on Obama's administration. And it was one of the coolest classroom experiences I've ever had, because as the Ukrainian crisis was unfolding, I had 2 Ukrainians, 2 Russians, and 2 very passionate Americans in my small group who were all able to talk very, very eloquently about what was going on. And I was able to hear all the different sides of this international crisis, things that were happening internationally from students my age, and students that I worked with on projects, and students that I got to talk to every day. But more than that, a big part of my exchange was the cultural exchange I was able to have. So being part of such a large international community, I was able to really both share my culture from back home and learn about other countries. So my favorite story to tell is my Thanksgiving dinner story. And that's where in an apartment roughly bigger than your freshman dorm room, just a little bit bigger, I cooked dinner for 8 people. And using a little bit of my engineering knowledge I've got here at Tech, I found a way to make 3 mixing bowls go a long way. And I had over 7 international students. So there were students from everywhere, like Latvia and Lithuania, to we had 2 Russians, a couple Englishmen, a couple people from South America, and a couple people from South Africa. As I shared with them my food and my favorite American tradition, I got to hear from them their favorite traditions from their countries. So I got to hear about, Danish Christmas carols and how the English were really jealous because Thanksgiving dinner is just like a holiday dinner twice, and they think that's awesome. I got to hear about my friends' favorite experiences from back home and what they loved about France. I was really able to sit around and share our cultures and share our favorite experiences, which is something I never would have imagined I was able to be able to do. And so, although it was a little hard when I first got there, learning French and speaking French in a city like Paris is a little difficult, it was the most rewarding experience of my life. So I know that if I need a place to stay in the Netherlands or a good restaurant recommendation in Johannesburg, I've got somewhere to go. And so now that I'm back at Tech, I'm able to actually kind of finish up my international plan. I only have 1 course left to take, or 2. I've got my my country course, and I have my capstone to take. So my country course is really great because it also counts for humanities credit I need to get out of the way. And I'm able to take women, literature, and culture, which is something I'm really passionate in, but it also applies to France, which is really cool. And then my capstone is going to be really fun because I'm able to take my business capstone while also having an international perspective, which is really exciting for what I want to do later in my life. But the best part of it was that I was actually able to take the rest of my IP credits while I was abroad. I was able to get credit for all of those in the university that I studied in. So I know I'll be ready to talk about this later, but thanks for listening.
So I think I love that Julia said she came knocking on our door because we have over 10 staff members that are dedicated to making sure you get to where you want to go. And the great part about it is that the international plan, international education or study abroad, and internships are all housed in the same office. So, you can come to us and we'll get you to the right advisor and, we'll get the process started. The other wonderful thing is that this year we are adding programs in Africa. Most of our programs have been in Europe. We have lots in Asia and some in South America, but this year it's exciting that we are having programs in South Africa and Botswana as well. Interns all over the world. Actually, if you go to our website, we have this great map showing where we all are all over the world. And so anyway, like they said, you can intern abroad. We have the study abroad programs, either faculty-led, where you go with Georgia Tech students and Georgia Tech faculty, or exchange, where you go and do a direct enroll at another university overseas. And then, of course, we have the wonderful international plan. So I think we'll just, answer any questions you may have about the programs.
Okay, thank you all so much. That was a great introduction to the programs that we have available at Georgia Tech, and we have been receiving quite a few questions through the chat function, which, as a reminder, is how you submit your questions. And I'm going to start asking them in the order I have received them. So I'm hoping to get to all of the questions, but we will cut off at 7 p.m. to make this a 1-hour webinar. And if I have some that are similar, I'll lump them together so that we're getting as much good information out there as possible. All right, so the first question for you is there any opportunity to take engineering or major-related classes in foreign languages?
So I can say yes, I'm not an engineering student. I was actually able to take 3 major related classes each semester that applied directly to my degree that I was able to then cross off my graduation checklist while I was there, and I was actually able to take a couple of them in French.
So I can say that yes, we have engineering options in other languages. I know of one student that just he's in aerospace engineering, and he spent a year in Russian and took his classes in Russian. He said, try thermo in Russian. Apparently it was quite a challenge. But also Japan, Germany, France. I mean, we have many, many options, definitely. And some students, like the student that did it in Russian, he actually had not taken Russian. He started learning Russian here at Tech. So that's also an opportunity. You know, if you're not really set on a language and you want to come here and pick up something new, you can start. We have programs, and you can dedicate like maybe year 1 and 2 to that and then go on an exchange. So it is a possibility.
So we've been getting a lot of questions about language, which I think students are concerned about, understandably. Okay. They're wondering if there's a language requirement to go abroad. Are there classes taught in English as well?
So I can also kind of jump in on that. My program doesn't actually have a language requirement, and I took half my classes in English and half my classes in French, but I know students who've gone to this program and taken all of their classes in English. So I know this is true for a lot of the programs that we have. So a lot of times there is a way to go abroad and study English and live in the cities and be able to, study your home language.
I could add something to that. For example, most of Japan speaks Japanese. In fact, all of Japan speaks Japanese. But of course, when you're in a big company, they also, their daily language to go to is of course Japanese, but they also want to learn more of English. And with me, what they said was they just wanted enough Japanese for survival skills, which honestly is not that hard. But then again, with the day-to-day communication, you could stick to English. I stuck to English because Japanese is really hard to learn, at least for me. That was a lot of fun experience because just by living there for 7 months, I mean, I'm sure if I could manage it in a place like Japan where almost they're very their language is very important to them, and that's good. And finding people who can speak English is a little bit difficult, but just because they're so warming and friendly, it still makes it so much more easier. And I actually had another friend who's a Japanese person who lives in the United States. He's from Marietta, and he also decided to join me there for 2-3 months there when he was there. It was definitely a plus point for him because he knew Japanese. But there's no requirement as such in a lot of programs where you could just go in and say hello, and they're going to be like, konnichiwa.
And also since Georgia Tech offers 27 faculty-led programs all around the world, since all of the classes are literally taught by Georgia Tech professors, of course they're all in English, so no worries.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the exception, of course, of the language LBATs, which are language for business and technology. And those are great programs if you want to, really tackle your language and try to gain fluency. And we do have a lot of students that do a combination of doing an LBAT and then heading to another program. But no, English is, you have plenty of options just with English.
Okay, and while we're on the topic, we'll knock out one more language question. What do you mean by a language level of 2002?
So at Georgia Tech, if you're starting from the very basics, like you're starting with a brand new language, you would start at 1001. So to get to 2002, you would just have to take 4 classes. So that would be 4 semesters or 2 years. But a lot of students who have taken foreign language in high school, can get credit from AP credits or IB, and then you can take a test and it'll place you in the correct level, language.
Okay, thank you. So let's move some to the specific departments. Well, not exactly specific departments, but this question here is, are there any specific requirements to start an internship in a specific country?
No. I was at the portal randomly one day. I was applying for many internship programs in the States and wanted to outside, and then eventually they sent me an email asking me for my resume, and all I did was they were like, hey, you should probably go talk to your Office of International Education and find out if you can do this. And I went out here and they were like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, all right. There was no requirements at all.
Okay. So with the international plan, we'll switch to that topic as we have quite a few questions. Is it possible to study abroad? Do you need to study abroad beginning in your freshman year, or do you have to fulfill the class requirements for the international plan first?
There's no specific order in which you have to do the requirements for the international plan. It's recommended that you do the global focus courses in the language before you go abroad, though, so you have like a background to the culture you're going to assimilate into, but there's no actual set order that you have to fulfill the requirements in. A lot of the times you can take a lot of the IB courses while you're studying abroad as well.
Okay, and someone's wondering if you could quickly repeat the IP requirements again. And all of these are on our website as well if y'all have follow-up questions.
Yes, I think the easiest would to just go to internationalplan.oie.gotech.edu. But the requirements really quick are 26 weeks abroad, which is usually 2 terms, 1 summer and 1 spring or fall, and then a language requirement up to 2002, and then 3 globally focused courses, 1 in international relations, global economics, and then country and region, and then the senior capstone course, which is altered a little bit to encompass international components.
Okay, thank you. So a few students are asking questions along these lines. Can all majors study abroad, or are there some majors that are so rigorous on campus that you can't fit it into a 4-year graduation plan?
What do you guys think?
Well, I would definitely say that no matter you're a business major or a psychology major or industrial design major, you can always find a study abroad program that you can participate in. And I think one thing that I really want to point out is that Georgia Tech has another campus in Lorraine in France, which they offer spring term, fall term, and summer term, like all year long program. And the classes that are being taught there is like really, really close to our core requirements. By core requirements, I mean that if you enter Georgia Tech, you have to take these prior to any major classes or with your major requirements. So I would say no matter what your major is, there's always a program for you.
Yes, what I tell students is the key is to make sure to come see us early on. It becomes harder with each semester, and especially if you have 1 semester left, then we may have a difficult time. But overall, if you come see us, come to our open houses, then we can usually find something. I really can't think of a major that it's not possible for.
I could probably tell that for a fact. I'm an electrical engineering major, and I also did what she just mentioned, GT Lorraine program. I did it over the spring, and I was able to take my electromagnetics and all those kinds of completely correlated classes, and just kind of like a regular semester instead in a city called Metz in France. And it was a lot of fun, and as she mentioned earlier, you got like the 4 days. 4 days of studying and 3 days of 3 days of just going around, and the faculty-led programs. And because of the whole satellite campus thing with Georgia Tech Lorraine, it's actually very easy, and definitely one experience which I would recommend every student coming in.
Thank you. Next question, does study abroad lower your tuition cost?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say it's really, really good if you're an international student or out-of-state student, because for most, I believe, besides Georgia Tech Lorraine program, for all the other programs, you got to pay in-state tuition plus a tiny bit of, I think, international fee or something like that, which is like $250 US dollars. So my study abroad program in Oceania in Australia, it really lowered my cost as an international student, because I literally paid less than what I normally pay at Tech to both study and travel. So that's awesome.
I agree with that experience 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And even for me as an in-state student, all my scholarships still applied. So I'm a Hope Scholar, so I got all that work, and I was actually able to study abroad in Paris for exactly the same amount as it would cost me to study abroad for a semester at Tech, which was great.
Awesome. So here's a question for Aditya. During what year did you start your internship?
I started my internship this year in January of 2014 up till August of 2014.
Okay, and another person has a question for you. Can you talk about something like a project that you did in your Japanese internship?
That would be a little bit, because it's of course an electrical engineer, it's a little oriented towards that field, but basically it was towards so NTT, since it's a networking company, they wanted us to design some optical networks, and so my job there at NTT was basically in a specific research group. I was helping them design this network and come up with a control scheme for the networks, which can be then later applied to cities or states all across the world, so that on the level of let's say metropolitan Atlanta, as big as that. Did I answer the question? I hope I did.
And Lynn, do you want to talk about something that you've done in your international internship as well?
Yeah. So one project that I did is the project Lightspeed. Basically, I worked on, because I am industrial engineering, so basically what I did is that I helped them to organize the flow of conducting interviews. If you're international, you might have received an email from Georgia Tech undergraduate admissions recommending you to participate participate in this initial interview, which I interned at. So I was behind the screen, basically helping them to optimize the flow and saving them time in their process. So basically, I think I helped them to save human power and a little bit of manpower time. So yeah, that was great.
And going off of the whole work experience, does anyone know much about Co-ops International and what the opportunities there are? And maybe explaining a co-op would be helpful first.
I think so one of the things which I know about a co-op, at least at Georgia Tech, is you have a 6-semester thing where you work for 3 semesters and you alternate studying and working. So 3 semesters of working and 3 semesters of studying. For example, international co-ops could be a little bit more different. So for example, what happened in my case was like a 2-semester continued co-op, which involved me working for 2 semesters together. I also had the option to work for 3 semesters, but I stuck with 2 because. But there's definitely the co-op options. I think maybe Hannah could talk about it a little bit more. You probably might know it.
Well, with co-op, it's most co-ops are in the U.S. So you do a co-op semester and then you do a co-op here at. Then you come back for a semester of study abroad. And you can do, sorry, I'm getting all these. You can do a co-op semester, you can come back to Georgia Tech, and then you do another co-op semester. But you can also do a co-op semester and then study abroad as well. There are international co-op opportunities, but it's similar to an internship in that you have to go look for them. And so we do have a mechanism here on campus to help you try to find those. But ultimately, you'd probably come see us because we could give you guidance on how to prepare for that international experience. So it is a possibility. It's just, to be honest, they're not as abundant as U.S. internships.
Yeah, just kind of building on, I'm actually looking for international internships, so I've heard a lot about this, but there's some really cool programs with multinational companies. So with a lot of programs, like you'll work in the U.S. for 2 semesters, and then you'll work abroad for your 3rd co-op term. There's a lot of opportunities like that to work both in the U.S. and abroad.
Thank you. And we're starting to get a lot of detailed questions about co-ops and internships. So I'm not going to take any more of those questions since this is more about the international opportunities abroad. But if you do have questions about co-ops and internships, I encourage you to go on our career development website and read more about it. They have a great website with a lot of information. Okay, so we'll move on with questions. Is it possible to graduate in 4 years but still participate in specifically the international plan but study abroad in general?
Yes, I'm graduating in 4 years, and I spent a year abroad for my international plan.
Same here, still graduating in 4 years.
Yes, I am graduating in 4 years, and I worked for 8 months and studied abroad for 4 months.
And going off of that, a student's asking, can you do these things during the summer? And that's a big part of it. So,
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Is it possible for freshmen to study abroad?
You guys, you have to have 2 semesters at Georgia Tech before you can study abroad. So you can study abroad your first summer. Some programs do have prerequisites, so you may have to wait a little bit longer so you get those prerequisites in. But in general, as long as you've completed 2 semesters of college level study and are 18 by the time that plane takes off, you are set to go.
Great. So this person's wondering, how is the balance between activities and academics while you're studying abroad? Is there enough time to participate in diverse extracurricular activities abroad?
So one thing which I would like to discuss here is, so when I spent 4 months in Georgia Tech Lorraine in the spring, I was I had 15 hours which I was taking. It was a whole lot of work, but because of the fact that Georgia Tech's curriculum was designed to compress it to 4 days, 3 days we would travel out every weekend to some country or the other, and basically over the course of the spring, which was about 16 weeks, and you put that all together, I saw most of Western Europe and some 2 or 3 countries in Eastern Europe. So, and I know a lot of people. One of my friends, he was really into cycling. He's a triathlete. And he actually took a weekend where he went and cycled off the track of Tour de France. And I think there's definitely, if you want to go mountaineering, or there's so many different opportunities which you could do even with the amount of course load or the amount of work you would be doing in a regular semester. You do, let's say, as a little bit reduced workload over in a study abroad program semester, and it still works out pretty great.
Yeah, and actually kind of building on that, so in a direct exchange, I was also able to travel a lot, but I was actually able to get involved with the extracurricular groups at the university I studied at. So I was actually part of 2 student organizations when I was there. One that was called Transatlantique, which was for French and American students, which was really cool, and I was also able to get involved with their big student government and really get in their culture, and still do a lot of extracurriculars.
Well, sorry. I think for faculty lab program, since say for Pacific program, we're not taking classes in a specific university, but we're just basically taking classes in a bunch of hotels because we're traveling all the time. So I think all the professors understand that you're participating in a study abroad program rather than studying at Tech. So they'll be super, super accessible during Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night, so that you'll study as hard as you can, and then basically our train will depart Thursday night, and then we'll play as hard as we can as well during the weekend. And then we'll go back on Monday, and then we'll continue the circle, which is great.
And play responsibly. But yes, I would say that we're aware that you are going to study abroad, and we want you to have a cultural experience. So I think programs do try to do a good job of having a balance. We do set, for example, at Georgia Tech Lorraine in the summer, we say only 12 credits, because we don't want you to be overwhelmed either. But we do take study abroad seriously. We don't want you to fall behind either. So I think we do try to find that nice balance with our programs.
Thank you. And when this sounds like it is specifically for you, are there study abroad opportunities in New Zealand or Australia that involve the sciences?
Yes. For me, I think I took biology 1520, which is a normal lab class that's required for as like one of your lab requirements for all the students at Tech, I believe, for most of the majors. So there are definitely science classes in New Zealand and Australia. One cool thing about that is like instead of normal lab classes, you just basically go out and do your experiment for your classes. Say like one time I literally I was doing snorkeling and experiment at the same time because I snorkeled. And then I counted how many different species of fishes or shell and that kind of stuff are there in a square feet or like in I can't remember how big was that, but you can literally go out and do field experiment instead of doing experiments in labs. So.
And we also have a few exchanges in Australia and New Zealand. So if you want to spend a semester studying at a university over there, that's also an option. One also went to Fiji. Yeah, so that's also.
Just so you know that I went to Fiji.
Yeah, it's part of the program, Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji.
Yeah.
So this is a good follow-up question. How is it that Georgia Tech works with other universities to create exchanges?
Well, I won't get too complicated because it is a complicated process, but in general what happens is, there'll be a professor that either knows a professor at the other university, and then it goes through a process to be approved as an exchange. We, of course, want to make sure that we are partnering with educations that are of our caliber. We, are very careful who we partner with. So most of our exchanges, I would say that students feel equally challenged academically and are ready to kind of pick up back at Tech when they come back. Would you say? Would you agree to that?
Definitely.
I mean, Sciences Po is one of the top universities in France. So.
Okay, thank you. So if you study abroad and really enjoy it, is it possible to go back to the same country?
Administratively, same country, yes. Same program, probably not, because of the classes. A lot of programs only have limited classes, so especially with faculty-led programs. For exchange, you could maybe do 2 semesters, or you could find another program. So it's possible, but it may be more limited.
Yeah, but I do know a friend of mine, she's participating in 2 semesters in Georgia Tech Lorraine program.
Yes, you could do that.
Right, because they're offering so many classes.
Okay. The opposite of that, is it possible to study abroad in multiple countries throughout the years at GT?
Yes, it is. We have, you did an internship in Japan and then France, and you've done both. You did 2 semesters at Sciences Po.
Yeah.
But we have, I think, our records 4 semesters abroad. So yes, you can. It is possible.
Okay, thank you. Can one of you talk about the most challenging part of studying abroad?
I'm going to defer to them.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the language barrier. Because although I had taken French in high school and it wasn't a required for my program, living in the city, there was a couple times where I really wish I spoke the language better, just so I could better communicate. Like, my hilarious story is I had to call an electrician. And calling an electrician when you don't have electricity to Google Translate what you're trying to say was a little difficult. But the longer I was there, the easier it got. And almost everyone in the city was really nice and was really helpful and helped me kind of make my way through it. But that was probably the biggest challenge I faced.
I could add a little bit to that because, when you are just trying to do very usual things, it's much easier to do it in a specific environment because you just speak English. Like an example, I was trying to so my boss in Japan had a 2-year-old daughter, so I was trying to buy some chocolates for her. And sure, I can find chocolates. It's not that hard to find chocolates. But then I was like, okay, so now I need to get these gift wrapped. So how do I do that? So I tried to talk to the person on the counter, and I tried to explain to them. And eventually you work something out, but you use a lot of Google Translate, and you use a lot of experience, just hand actions trying to tell what you want. But you learn to observe so much, just which you don't do it on a daily basis because you're so used to everything, just being the way it is. And another example could be the first day I had lunch there. There was a bowl of soup, and since I'm from India, I would just use a soup spoon and I'd just go for it. And there was a regular spoon there, so I was like, all right, so might as well try and use that. And the Japanese soup bowls are very thin and wooden, so they're pretty light, and it toppled over on me, and I was like, oh, what do I do now? And then my boss looked at me on the left, and he was just like, and I was like, oh, so that's how it's done out here. So just learning those little simple things back again was such a refreshingly new experience that even though in the start it feels like, oh, I don't know what's happening, but when you come back and you just realize those moments back again, you see how much different you are from the way you started and the way you're actually ending.
For me, the most challenging part, it's specific for international student because we had 50 students in our program, and then I was the only international student. So it was really challenging, but also that was what I was looking for because I got to hang out with all students from the United States, and it kind of pushed myself to just jump into their circle and hang out with them all the time, travel with them, or just study with them. Because honestly, at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, most of the time I hang out with Chinese. But when I was with that program, I got to know so much more about local culture or American. And this program brought me 3-4 of my really close friends right now, which it would be really hard for me without this program.
Thank you. So can you describe what life is like logistically? What is it like to live in a foreign apartment or dorm, and how do you get all of those types of things set up, or did you have any issues with that?
So for me, the university I was exchanging with, they had a list of apartments that we could apply to. So I applied to an apartment, I got an apartment. It was actually just really fun to live on my own because I learned how to cook. I learned, how often I really needed to do my laundry. And there were actually a lot of struggles. After I got there and got set up, I found my grocery store, I found my laundromat, and it was all pretty smooth sailing. But I was actually helped a lot by the university I was exchanging with. They had a lot of resources for me.
Something I could say, like NTT, the company which I worked with, was very nice about it. They have company dormitories around Tokyo, and they basically helped me stay in one of those, and which provided breakfast and dinner if you'd like to sign up for it. So in the start, it was much easier for me to kind of move in because I knew that I didn't have to worry about a lot. And since I was the only student who was actually going in at that very point of time, and it was a little bit hard to get used to things in the first couple of days, and they provided all the support which was required, and then along with the YE, which was able to brief me before I went on what kind of things to expect, and what kind of difficulties I would be going through. In fact, they went ahead and did so much that they provided my boss provided me with a little written statement of things that, okay, this is in Japanese, this is in English, and if you need to find me or how to get to the bus stop and things like that. So they're very helpful, doing those kinds of things. But eventually, once you get a hang of it, you start to experiment a little bit more, try to go out a little bit more, and it all does work out pretty nicely.
For faculty lab program, for the ones that you had to travel so much, I think we were only allowed to take one suitcase and one backpack, which I trained myself so well in organizing everything, because I had to actually count how many shirts I'm taking, how many t-shirts I'm taking, to just pack everything in one suitcase. We got to leave, there were times that we get to leave with, by ourselves, and then there are also times, I think it's in Hero Island in Australia, we had to leave at a workstation, which 8 of us share a bunk bed, and then it's really crowded, but it was super fun. And then another thing is that Office of International Education just prepare you so well prior to departure. They have a list of everything you need, and then you just, go to all their info sections and listen really well, and then you'll be super prepared for everything.
Okay, thank you. Which are the most popular study abroad programs, and what draws people to these?
Well, I think Georgia Tech Lorraine is a popular one, just because it does offer a lot of engineering courses. So I think especially for the majors that may find a harder time finding an exchange, Georgia Tech Lorraine does that. Our Oxford summer program is also popular. Our Pacific program, Barcelona program. I mean, I feel like this year all programs are filling up. So I really think it's great that we have a lot of interest in variety.
When you say that they're filling up, does that mean that it's competitive to get into a study abroad program, or what are the requirements like when a student actually arrives here?
They vary quite a bit, but I would say that a lot of our faculty-led summer programs are on a rolling basis, which means that if you meet the criteria, you get accepted as you apply. But I will say that our exchanges are a little bit more competitive. You have to have a 3.0 GPA, and we have a handful of spots. So for Sciences Po, we may just be able to nominate 3 of our students. And so we may get 15 applicants, and we can just take the top 3. So exchange does tend to be a little bit more competitive.
Thank you. The student's wondering specifically about GT Lorraine. Is it different from studying in any other country in terms of costs, classes, etc.?
Well, the only difference I would say is, Julia was at Sciences Po. She is in the heart of Paris, so she is in a city. Georgia Tech Lorraine, it's its own campus. So you're how far from Metz?
Probably 15-20 minutes by walking.
15-20 minutes. So you still have a town close to you, but it's almost like we're transporting Georgia Tech and putting it in France. The great thing is you get all these opportunities to travel to different cities and explore. I would say the costs are similar. The only big difference is for out-of-state students, it's going to be the in-state tuition plus $3,500 instead of the $250 for most other programs.
And this is another slightly technical question, but would engineering classes taken abroad in another language count for credit as an engineering course and as a language course?
I don't think so. Do you have any experience with this?
I think my classes counted for my major courses, but I didn't try to count them as language courses as well.
Yeah, I think most of the time they don't count as language courses. They count as the course for for your engineering class.
I think I asked this one time, and I've been told that the classes, depending on the course title, if that's an engineering class, then it's count towards your engineering elective. If it's a language class, then it counts towards your language requirements.
Great. So this person's wondering, if I'm not fluent in the language of the country, would you recommend me to stay in Georgia instead of traveling?
What do we say? No.
I was in no way fluent in French when I went, and it was great.
I'm gonna be very honest. I didn't know a word of Japanese when I went in, and I still don't know a word of Japanese. But it was still really amazing. Same goes with when I went to Georgia Tech Lorraine for France. I didn't know any French, and because I'm a really like a hardcore engineer at heart, and for me languages don't come that easy. But I really like traveling, so I just just pick your suitcase up and leave. That's the best way to do it.
Okay, and I think the final question would be, how did you decide to come to Georgia Tech once you had applied and been admitted? For the 4 students.
Okay. Well, I wanted time to prepare. Anyways, I guess I always wanted to study science and engineering. I guess at least in China, I think MIT, CIT, and GIT, we call it Georgia Tech GIT, are the 3 top schools that most Chinese kids are looking for. So I applied to Georgia Tech, and then I got admitted. And then because Georgia Tech is located in Atlanta, which is quite warm, not even today, like it's freezing, but it's pretty warm. So I just didn't want to wrap myself up as like a teddy bear or something. I want to keep myself warm, and then also I am surprised by not surprised, but I am glad that I can participate in industrial engineering, which is I think we're #1 in the world
In
or
the nation.
in the nation for 26 years or something like that.
Yeah,
a
long
time. And then just the professors, the resources, and then also your fellow students. They're all good resources for you. Also, Georgia Tech has lots of cool study abroad programs that are not necessarily offered by any other universities. So that's why I'm here, and I'm glad that I chose here.
So again, as I told you earlier, I'm a really like an engineering person at heart, and I wanted to go to a school which focuses on something like that. And that's one of the reasons I came to Tech out here. Secondly, as she said, Atlanta is it's in the heart of the city in comparison to other schools which may not be, which are probably in like college town or something like that. I didn't want anything like that. I wanted something which is right in the middle, in everything's happening right around you. And Georgia Tech is really good for that, because you go right out of there's some sort of campus bubble around you, but as soon as you just step right outside, and you're welcome to Atlanta, welcome to the world, and it's great. Those are some of the key specific factors which really helped me, because when I was in school, I didn't really hang around with a lot of people who really liked engineering as much as I did. So for me to come out here and experience all those people who loved things which I also wanted to do in my life was such a refreshing experience, and I'm actually learning more about them rather than telling them things which I did back in high school. Just telling me, hey, look, man, this thing came out. No, there's now people telling me about new things which are happening around me, and it really helps you become into the kind of person which you want to become, instead of your surroundings which they are trying to make you. And I think that's the major the deciding factor and why I came to Tech instead of some other school.
For me, since I'm in-state, the Hope Scholarship really helped. So I wanted to stay in-state. And I knew that I wanted to go into engineering, specifically industrial engineering. So Georgia Tech was definitely the #1 choice for me. It's the best engineering school in Georgia. But besides that, Georgia Tech is it's like a pretty small campus compared to other schools, but it has so much to offer. Like you can walk across campus and you'll hear so many different languages. We have so many international students here, and then so many opportunities to get more than just a degree. You can go abroad. A lot of people internships. It's very easy to get an internship at Tech. A lot of people will do minors. They'll join. We have so many programs, and then the students at Tech are very different from my high school. In high school, I was in the top 10. I helped a lot of people. I tutored a lot of people. But here at Tech, everyone was in the top 10. Everyone's so smart. So when I got here, I really learned. I'm learning a lot from my professors, but I feel like I'm learning more from my peers. So that's one thing I really enjoy about Tech. So Tech was definitely my #1 choice.
Yeah, and then for me, I'm also in state, so Hope Scholarship was a big part of it, but I chose Tech as a non-engineer because I loved the culture. Like Jennifer just said, everyone here is really, really smart, which is really interesting, but I love the ability to come and work with people who are engineering-minded, but who also are interested in kind of everything in the world, which is really cool. And then also all the international experiences that I'd be able to go abroad for a year and be able to do it so early on was just a selling point for me. It was great.
Okay, thank you all so much. We've come to the end of our hour, and many of the students watching the webinar, you had questions that were very specific about the major or different countries, so the students might not know the answer to those questions, so I wanted you to get to hear more about their lives abroad, and please visit oie.gatech.edu for all the information that you might be looking for. You can see, as Ana Rosa mentioned, a whole map of the world and where our students currently are, and that will both inspire and answer many of your questions. So thank you so much for attending, and thank you to our panelists for being a part of this evening, and the students are very thankful as they're sitting through the chats. So thank you so much.